SSA March 18th, Friday, March 18th meeting. I know that we're going to have folks joining a few minutes late, so we will start in about 2 minutes. So Katie, we're still waiting for a quorum of board members as well as the executive director and the director for communication. So let me know if you're seeing Britta or Sabrina, and I'm not.
Britta and Sabrina are coming from another meeting that I think is running just a little bit over, but they'll get here just as soon as they can. I am seeing HSSA members log in and promoting everybody to panelist as soon as they hop on. And here's Britta logging on right now.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Darrell Watson. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the chair of the Housing Stability Strategic Advisory Board. We go by HSAC. It's a little bit easier than saying the acronym. It's so great to see each of your faces. That's really beautiful Friday morning here in Denver, Colorado. I'm seeing a lot of faces on the Zoom that I haven't seen for a moment. I'll call out Carissa. Good to see you. It's been a second. It's really great that you're on the call. I do see that we have a quorum of board members on the call, so I will call this meeting to order. I want to thank each of the board members for your participation. And as a reminder, before we, and actually, Katie, if you don't mind, we can start recording the meeting at this point.
Yes, we are recording. Thank you.
And that was a teacher's pause to hear that the recording has begun. Has it begun, Katie? If you don't mind unmuting and saying yes? Yep, okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you all for the HSAC board members for your leadership of this board, for reviewing the information that Katie sent, which are the minutes for January and February, as well as coming prepared to have a discussion on the housing stability pillar of the 5-year plan. I'll walk quickly through the agenda, then I'll open for public comment. For the public comment section, if you are not a panelist and you're not doing a presentation, you're some member of a community that wants to share your thoughts, your ideas on any topic that's specific to the work of the Housing Stability Department or specific to information you would like the Housing Stability Strategic Advisor Board to be aware of, please feel free once we come to the public comment section to come off of mute. We'll provide 3 minutes for each member of the public. Thank you so much for being here as well, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on this good work. So we'll walk through kind of for the agenda. We'll have the public comment, then we'll review and approve the January 28th and February 18 minutes. The director updates will be provided by Britta Fisher. We'll have a briefing on equity by Israel Cruz and Sam Olson from the Housing Stability Department. And then we'll dive into our main discussion, which is on housing opportunity pillar deep dive. And that'll be led by Angie Nelson and Melissa Fate from the Housing Stability Department. And then as a board, we'll have a brief discussion about the strategies, any thoughts that we have, and ways in which we feel that this is impacting the communities that we all serve. And if there aren't any additional comments from either host or the HASA board members, we will adjourn. The hope is to conclude right on time at 11:30. So thank you so much, Katie, for advancing to the next slide. And we can advance to the next slide as well. Thank you. So for public comment, if there are any individuals in the public that would like to make a verbal comment to the board or to housing staff, please raise your hand or just simply unmute and join the dialogue, bring your voice into the room. If you're more comfortable communicating through chat, you can do that as well. So I'll pause for a quick moment before we move on to the next agenda item to see if there's any public comments. And Katie, if you don't mind helping me, if there are folks who are raising hands that I don't see them, please help with calling them out. If there aren't any, I'll give about 1 minute.
Right now, I don't see any hands raised, but if anybody has come to give a comment and would like to unmute and speak, please feel free.
Know that members of the community can always provide public comments to the department as well as the HSSA board. If you simply go on our website for the housing department, there are ways to contact either host as a department as well as provide comments or input on any of the initiatives that host is leading. With that, I'll turn back to the board and have a brief review and approval of the January 28th and February 18 meeting minutes. Board members, we did not approve the minutes during our last January minutes during our call on February 18th. And so Katie sent those out on March 15th for us to review. I'll give the board a second to look through first the January 28th minutes, and we'll approve them separately. So I'll call for a motion, a second, and then approval of the January 28th, and then we'll do the same for February 18th. So just 1 minute for board members to review the January 28th minutes.
Daryl, this is Maria Sepulveda. I saw there was a question with respect to my comments in the minutes for January 28th.
Do I have
Do you want me to bring that up after our second?
Approve the January 28th minutes from the board?
We heard
Maria's just need a board member to unmute and say, so moved.
So moved. Daryl, this is Melanie.
Maria, do you need?
Yeah, I guess, Daryl, can you hear me?
Jenny, are you moving? I see you're off of mute.
Can you hear us, Daryl?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. Let me.
Yeah, I guess I can't hear any of this.
Now I can hear you. Good.
Oh, Maria had a comment.
Yeah, but I wonder, do you want to get the second and then I can make my comment?
Yeah, we need to do the motion and a second, and then we'll do comments.
I'll do the second. I'll do the second.
So moved by Jenny, seconded by Maria, and then let's open it up for discussion of the board for January 28th.
Okay, so January 28th, I noticed that there was a question as to my comments there highlighted. So I just wanted to, give the language that you could correct that with. And it was just about the expanding housing affordability that I had made, or Habitat and a few others had submitted comments just around providing the incentive in areas that have lower density to make sure that we are also encouraging affordable housing in, areas where you'd be building at less than the 10 units, and providing those incentives there as well. So that was just maybe to help expand on the word infill there.
Thank you so much, Maria. Are there any additional updates? And know that when board members provide updates, the department is taking those notes. They'll add those updates once the motion and second is approved for the minutes. Any other updates? And I know Kwika was waiting to be promoted. Okay, perfect. Any other questions on January 28th? Hearing none, all in favor? And if board members don't mind unmuting and just saying yes. All in favor, say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone that disapproves of accepting the minutes? Anyone abstaining? Hearing none, the January 28th board minutes have been approved. Let's do the same for February 18th. May I ask for a motion and a second from the board?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved, and a second?
I second.
Thank you for the second. Are there any questions, amendments, updates for the February 18th board meetings? And I always encourage board members to make sure for like attendance, even if it's not a quote from them, but if their attendance is listed, that they're not there and that they weren't present and they are present. Those are some of the things that can easily be missed. So I'll give the board a few minutes and then we'll move forward from this and approve the minutes.
Excuse me, whoever made the motion, could you just say your name, please?
Kwika.
Thank you.
And was that Randy that did the second?
Thomas.
Thomas. Oh, thank you, Thomas. Hearing no additional comments or amendments to the motion, all in favor, if board members don't mind coming off of mute and saying yes? Yes?
Yes.
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 Anyone
Yes.
that opposes? Any abstentions?
I didn't unmute in time to say yes. Sorry about that. This is Kristen. So yes.
I am quick with moving these motions forward, so I apologize. If I go too fast, just say yes late. Thank you so much, everyone. The February 18th minutes have been approved. Thank you all for reviewing, and I would like to turn it over to the Executive Director for Housing Stability, Britta Fisher.
Thanks, Daryl, and good to see everyone this morning. Things keep happening and we keep pursuing our goals. And so there's a few updates that we have for you. One, I want to say thank you to the members here and to community members who've been able to make to one of our two prioritization policy stakeholder meetings. The policy is really important as we combat displacement here in Denver, and we really appreciate your feedback and your time and expertise. We will be holding a public meeting later this spring with the hopes of going in front of City Council later this summer. Another thing that you may have seen from us is that we released a couple of procurements. One is the safe parking RFP that was released at the end of February. We've issued an RFP for service providers that are interested in administering a safe parking program for persons experiencing homelessness in their personal vehicles. The service provider would manage the site operations and provide on-site services at approved city-owned or controlled sites or sites that provider may have control of for this permitted use. We are utilizing some American Rescue Plan Act funds. About $150,000 for this are available to pilot the program. And then as we have funds available, there may be additional funds. The other procurement I wanted to make you aware of is the Crossroads request for expression of interest. So Crossroads Shelter is one of our larger shelters here in the system that is a walk-up shelter in a adjacent to downtown location that is walkable. And we really would like to see an improvement in the quality of shelter that we're able to provide, as well as affordable housing. And that location is really prime. It has good zoning, and we think this is an excellent opportunity to leverage the market interest and see if there's a way that we can get more additional affordable housing and improved quality shelter. So because we used the CDBG dollars, or Community Development Block Grant dollars, to purchase the property, we will maintain shelter through October 31st of 2024 and perhaps beyond. We did post an advance notice on our website earlier this month, and the real estate has issued the REOI in a press release as well. So I just wanted to let you know that that is happening. Once the REOI, the request for expression of interest, is done, we'll take that feedback and then we'll refine and move forward if we need to go with an RFP, or request for proposal. So it's a great chance for people who have wanted to see something changed there to bring forward ideas, and we look forward to reviewing those. And you may have seen me and some other folks in the news on some HOA foreclosures that have been happening in our community. In particular, we're very concerned about the number of foreclosures in the Green Valley Ranch area. We have found 68 foreclosures filed by the Master Homeowner Association for Green Valley Ranch since January of 2021. That stands out since there were 119 such foreclosures filed in 2021, and 50 were from this one HOA, while other HOAs did not have more than 5. So we're concerned about that. There has been a housing resource fair that was held at the Green Valley Ranch Rec Center that was very well attended. There will likely be more resource fairs. You may be aware we do have housing counseling support that we provide to people who need that service. And so we also have affordable homes in the area and are working to ensure that our covenants continue to be enforced in any transitions of those properties. So those are some of the things that are standing out to us as we work with other city partners and elected representatives to ensure that people are understanding this issue. A couple other things that have come up. We have had some cold weather, wet weather, and so we've received some questions about weather-related events and how that affects sheltering. Of course, we are very concerned that serious weather can pose a danger to those outside. We do have capacity in our shelters for people experiencing homelessness, and we do encourage people to come inside. During every severe weather event this winter, Denver shelters have had beds available, and we've had contractors on standby and on location to add additional capacity as needed. Host, our shelter providers, our outreach partners will continue to monitor the weather as well as the shelter usage to activate those expansions of shelter as necessary. We've not had to stand up an additional site at a rec center because we've had additional room at some of our front doors of the shelter system, like the Lawrence Street shelter. And that is where we can leverage the most when it comes to food, transportation, staffing. So that is part of why we've configured this more robust shelter system that can then use those tools every night as well. We have had this partnership from our Parks and Recreation Department, who have made decisions to open up as their rec centers as warming centers during regular business hours. So we thank them for that. And outreach teams have continued to prioritize people in need of shelter, getting to that here in the cold weather. So those are a few of the things, but there's still more. So we're going to go to another slide because so much has been happening. I did send you all a letter in February with just an explanation of some of our dynamics with FEMA. FEMA approved and has committed $83.9 million towards Denver's congregate and non-congregate shelter expenses incurred between March of 2020 and June of 2021. That is both congregate and non-congregate. It has been a lot of work represented by so many of our partners, some on this call, and we're grateful for those funds. But as we have moved to our next request, we heard from an official that they were objecting to a change in language in the state public health order regarding social distancing. They were pointing to a language change from required to recommended regarding social distancing that they said may have made our congregate sheltering activities ineligible for reimbursement. This is pretty concerning and troubling to us in that it really could impact a lot of our shelter billing. Maybe 15 million for the build out of our COVID-19 expansion shelter, as well as another 10 to 17 million dollars for emergency operations. So that, is a good amount of money. But we're further confused because we just don't understand why that would change anything, because the Stafford Act, which it makes it really clear that congregate shelter is an eligible activity and that we should be able to get reimbursed for activating that congregate shelter during an emergency. And that just seems really clear to us and has been established for a long time. And it seems that that is what may be happening in other regions. So we're a little confused about why this region is making that interpretation when other regions also have words like may and as available in their public health orders. So we're holding $21 million in funding for sheltering costs. And we have another 28.8 million of unspent available balance to cover those costs. So we're in a place right now where we're able to cover what we have based on the good financial planning that we've done as a city. But it really could impact how long some other services are. Our current contracts, I know there are also contractors on the line here, that extend into 2022, they're not impacted. We're able to maintain those commitments, and those services will continue as contracted. So we have to see how this all plays out. Where we are is that we still have not officially been denied our request. And that's a good thing. It gives us a chance to continue to work to make sure that they understand how we're seeing this. But also it gives them a chance to just think about their decision, and those helping them think about that decision are inclusive of many advocates who have written letters. So thank you to the Homeless Leadership Council, the State Joint Budget Committee, but especially to our congressional delegation. I want to give a lot of appreciation to Congresswoman DeGette, Senators Hickenlooper and Bennett, who have written pretty powerful letters explaining the impacts that this could be from this interpretation of what seems like a technicality to us. So those are a lot of big things. I wanted to go to some good news and end on a few good news items. And yes, I had quite a few items today. So let's talk about big good news. On Tuesday, City Council moved our general obligation bond issuance out of committee to full council. So that includes $38.6 million for shelter and housing. We previously had announced that would include $7.4 million for the purchase of the men's shelter facility at 4600 East 48th Avenue that is operated by the Denver Rescue Mission. At committee, it was also announced that we will use $28.2 million for 2 new shelters We're excited about these partner shelters. One is the Urban Peak Mothership New Youth Shelter. That is 35 beds that they have today in what looks like a warehouse kind of building that will get scraped, and they will build a new shelter facility with 136 beds for youth in our community. That nearly quadruples their capacity. So we're excited about that with Urban Peak, who also did get some money from Congresswoman DeGette as well, and our congressional partners, Senators Bennett and Hickenlooper, through congressionally directed spending. So we're excited with Urban Peak. The other one is Volunteers of America, the family shelter that has long existed, serving about 30 families, will be also scraped, and a new shelter facility will be built with 52 non-congregate units for family shelter. And so for anybody who has been to that family shelter, it is past its useful life for both Urban Peak and for VOA. It's really great to see that we'll be able to make these investments with bond dollars. And in the case of Urban Peak, nearly quadruple the capacity, and in the case of VOA, doubling of their capacity. So we are excited about this. We'll be talking more about it in coming days. It has some more steps in the council process, but we'll be doing some events with our partners on that. So congratulations to all of our shelter partners for these investments that our community and our Denver voters have made possible. Speaking of good news, I alluded to this, but Congresswoman Diana DeGette also did have a press conference this week announcing 10 projects for housing, homelessness, and health that she had championed as part of the omnibus bill that is passed and is awaiting signature from the president. That includes the $3 million that I mentioned for Urban Peaks project, as well as $2 million for the purchase of the stay in as a shelter or supportive housing site. So that is a lot of big news. And so I'll just end with the wonderful event that we had this week at the Stella to celebrate the people being housed there. They were able to stay on time, on budget, with 132 units of affordable housing, with 16 units of supportive housing, multi-bedroom units, great dog wash area, bike parking area, and it's just a great project in Globeville with Laredon, a good partnership between a service provider in the community and an affordable housing developer that has created this great product. It was also a nice bookend. The building next door with the same teams is the Elizabetta, and we actually had that opening just like 3 days before the stay-at-home orders of the pandemic. And so it was nice to see that housing and this housing and these partnerships. And I was excited that Laredon and Gorman are excited to do more in that area as well. And it has adjacency to some other projects that they've done at Laredon, including Habitat for Humanity homes. So it's just wonderful to see the transformation that has happened in that couple block area of Globeville. So with that, I'm going to end all the list of the many big things that have been happening and toss it back to our chair, Daryl.
Thank you so much, Britta and team, for all the good work that you've done. I wanted to see if any of the board members have any questions, anything else that they wanted. I know, Britta, you may feel like you've spoken forever, but I just wanted to see for a moment if board members have any questions. If you do, you can come off mute, ask a question. Seeing none, I have two quick questions then, Britta. For the Crossroads REOI, and I keep saying REI as well, so the REOI, I had one question from a community member that was wondering what's the kind of the process host takes when they are considering whether it's expansions or they have funds for additional shelter opportunities. Their main question was, why is the expansion once again within the same communities that seem to shelter most of these opportunities. Not saying they didn't want it, but they're just curious, is there an opportunity to look outside of the downtown corridor that has kind of the majority of service providers and shelters, et cetera? Very high level.
That. Yeah, appreciate that question, Daryl. And there's a couple things that I would say. We have not prescribed in this REOI that there must be shelter on that site.
Okay.
We want affordable housing for sure. And they could come with a proposal that is affordable housing and shelter on that site. It could be affordable housing and shelter nearby. There's some reasons with taking down a building, there might be some reasons that it makes sense to have shelter at a different site, but we have asked for it to be walkable to some services. It's still really critical because of transportation needs, mobility needs, and accessibility to have walkable downtown shelter. We see this particularly with some of the severe weather and cold weather that we've had recently. We do have shelter in other parts of the community, but we still need something that is downtown, and we would like to have an asset that is walkable, accessible, and easily gained with on foot or on wheel transportation. So.
And thanks for that clarification, Britta. And I'll bring that back to the community with some individual leaders within the Curtis Park neighborhood that asked that question. One quick update on EHA. Is there anything to share as to the status, where that's at within the council process, and if there's support needed from folks on this call?
We'll continue to take support anytime for this exciting policy that could do a lot to expand affordable housing here in Denver. Right now, it is not yet to council. There will be a hearing, and Sabrina might be able to help me out with the date in April.
Yeah, they're going to Planning Commission first. And if you are interested in speaking during public comment to Planning Commission, I can get you that date. And then I will also send the subsequent dates for City Council and when those will be. We would be happy to have any support from HSSA at either of those public comment sessions. So I'll send those via email.
Perfect. And one other thing I wanted to share, Britta, and I'm not sure if I shared this with you. I know I shared it with Sabrina. I think Polly Kyle, if I'm saying it correct, and her team that presented on prioritization, I think they did a fantastic job. And it wasn't just simply that she is an amazing communicator and she's able to communicate stuff well. The information that was communicated about prioritization, kind of the intentionality and how that policy is being developed, and her willingness to really to look at some of the core things that community is saying that's important for prioritization when it comes to folks who have experienced displacement and gentrification in their communities. I just think it was a fantastic presentation. So I publicly wanted to share it to you, Britta, and your team. Polly did a fantastic job, and all the folks around Polly. I know it's not just her, and I just wanted to at least to put it out there. I thought that presentation was so well done, and it's so important to community. So just wanted to add that very quickly.
Thanks for that, Daryl. And there's several who contributed to that here, but we will specifically let Polly know about your words as well.
Thank you, Britta and team. And I'm not seeing any other questions and comments from board members for the executive director. So I'll turn it over to Israel Cruz and Sam Olson for the update on EDI.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Olson, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am a co-lead for our department's EDI team, as well as Israel's also a co-lead. But in this case, EDI stands for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So we're really focusing on leading with race in our work within our department. As you can see here, we have quite a few members involved in EDI. We do have a pretty good representation across our divisions, and we're hoping to improve communication about our EDI work across the department, since not everyone in our department is on the EDI team. Next slide, please. All right, and we have recently asked for input from people involved in the EDI, how to really provide more structure. What does it mean to be on the EDI team? And so these are just some involvement expectations that we are still kind of in draft, hoping that next month we can get these solidified. But to be part of EDI, we're really hoping that people complete the Racial and Social Justice Academy training within the first 180 days of hire. And for folks that are not part of the city of Denver, the Racial and Social Justice Academy is a pretty intensive training provided by the Office of Social Equity and Innovation. And it takes 3 pretty large chunks of time of training in addition to pre-work. So it's pretty well-rounded of talking about justice kind of across the country and specific in Denver. So that's one requirement. That's not just in EDI, but it is a requirement, I believe, for all of host employees. So we might as well have that as a requirement for the EDI team. Next, we have the host housing equity resource guide. This is just a kind of a toolkit for people to learn more about equity in housing. We post different books, articles, and documentaries, and add new resources to that guide every month. This guide is provided to new hires in host. So we really wanted to make sure EDI team members were familiar with it and knew of the resources, so that, which gets me to the next point of being a point person. So while we have a pretty good representation of the different divisions in host part of EDI, not everyone is as in tuned with the equity work that the team is doing. So really wanting to educate our team enough that they feel comfortable talking to their team and division about what EDI is working on, and also bringing some issues from their team back to the EDI group to discuss different initiatives. Right now we have a few initiatives going on, and so our expectation is hoping that we have initiatives that each member feels like they can participate and be an active member with. So I will actually pass it over to Israel, and he'll talk a little bit more about the initiatives that we're doing.
Thank you, Sam. Currently, most of our members are contributing to a number of initiatives. We have approximately 7 right now that we're working through the various process of developing them and implementing the work that we're working, that the initiatives are hoping to address and contribute to achieving our equity goals here at Host. 2 of them, the Host Equity Dashboard and the Metro DP ASE social, the Metro Down Payment Assistance and Social Equity Program will be rolling out soon within the next couple of months. The Equity Dashboard is a tool that we have created to help us track and evaluate our housing stability and opportunity programs. So these are our eviction, legal assistance, temporary utility assistance, and housing counseling programs. This is a tool that we're using to track the participation of those programs against the demographic characteristics of the city of Denver. And the Metro Down Payment Assistance program is a geographically based program that targets residents or the descendants in some of our historically red line neighborhoods here in Denver. So those are the 2 initiatives that we're rolling out within the next couple of months. For 2022, we have a number of initiatives, two initiatives that we're hoping to finalize their planning and their implementation process by the end of the year. The equitable monitoring and evaluation initiative is part of our strategy to effectively track our outcomes by race and ethnicity. The monitoring component in our equitable monitoring and evaluation initiative is going to collect the quantitative data of the demographics that are the programs that are funded by host and the demographic breakdowns within those programs. For the monitoring part, we are currently working here at the programs team to create and streamline our site visits, our quarterly site visits that we conduct with our partners to include more equity-based questions to really understand the challenges that they're facing and the successes that they have in achieving equitable outcomes to our underserved BIPOC populations. We're also working through implementing and developing a process to administer a organizational racial equity self-assessment survey. Host has currently administered that survey for a number of years, since 2020, I believe. And we're trying to develop a process to help our partners administer that survey. And the survey is a tool that we're using to identify create the baseline of information where a given organization may need change or improvements as it relates to racial equity and social justice. So we're hoping to expand that tool not only to host, but also to our partners. And we're working through that to develop that administration plan. We also have 3 other initiatives that we're still thinking through. We're gathering teams to have those discussions and see how we can develop a planning process to realize those initiatives. And with that, I can answer any questions if any of your members have any. Sabrina?
Yeah, would you mind just talking a little bit about one of the things that we've been doing is really working to coordinate on with the EDI team and also kind of crosswalking their work to a lot of the work that's being done in our divisions that was identified in the 2022 action plan that were the strategies that had been identified as equity related. And so I just wanted to make sure the team knew that that was happening as well.
Yeah, that's right. We're currently, well, as you can see, some of our initiatives touch on almost all of those strategies that host has developed for our 2020 action plan to address equity in our work. So right now we're working with the OESI, the Office of Equity, Inclusivity, and well, I'm forgetting the acronym. I don't know if somebody can jump in. But we're working with the mayor's office to really develop that plan where we can track our host strategies and deliver the equity outcomes by really detailing how this specific initiatives help support those department-wide strategies. A lot of them just really touch on some of them in various ways. So we really want to create, like Sabrina said, that overall plan that help us track those that work that we're doing so we can better report to the city and to the public about the outcomes that we're achieving through our initiatives.
Thanks, Israel.
And Jenny?
Daryl, I have a question, Israel, or some of the other team members, and this is really exciting to see. I think it's going to be great to be able to monitor and evaluate how well Host is working with partners to meet some of those, you know, to fill some of those gaps that we have seen in Denver. But I'm wondering, when you've got this planning, the engaging partners to make sure that they know what the expectations of them are and whether they're actually implementing EDI commitments, if you're also planning on providing resources to them to help them get there. One of the things at Enterprise, we provide HUD Section 4 grants, capacity building grants to a lot of the partners across the state, and have been asking about their own practices around racial equity. And one of the things we noticed this year is that many of our partners really have been engaging and doing a lot of self-assessment, but taking the steps for implementation takes resource, and you know, internalizing those processes at the organization can be a challenge. And so I think I would just urge hosts to think about some ways to really support the partners so that they can get there, and that we can all get there together. Thanks.
Good comments, Jenny, and it's definitely something that we've been thinking about as well. We have put an emphasis on creating a baseline, and that way we can measure as we provide any further assistance, how has that impacted any progress?
Any additional questions for Sam or Israel or any of the other members of the team?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Daryl. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to, and I could have missed this, but I wanted to find out how this information is being sent out to community. How would our families and our residents know that this implementation for the down payment assistance or any type of support, how is that being communicated to community?
I'm happy to take a stab at that. So we, with the communications team, we are meeting with all of our different program areas, and we do strategic communications and engagement plans for each of them. So we really look at what the intent of the program is, who the various different audiences are, and then we look at what's the best way to try to reach them. And that can include a lot of different tactical pieces. Most recently with Green Valley Ranch, we did direct postcard mailings to 60 specific homes because those were the ones we really wanted to target. But it can also be much more broad to across the community with things like social media outreach. We've done for our rent and utility assistance programs, we actually did some targeted advertising online, which was actually very highly successful. So there's a really broad range of different tactics that we can take dependent on the audience for that particular program. The Metro DPA social equity program in particular, we are working with them right now, putting their plan together on how we intend to get that word out to people. And I'm happy to go into more detail and share with you the various different communications plans on any of these different pieces of work that you'd like to. We aided Polly in her putting together her plan for how to do that community engagement as well. So really trying to dive in with each of our teams to make sure they have that kind of support from communications and community engagement.
Thank you, Masha. Thank you, Sabrina, for that response. I just want to say very quickly to Israel and Sam, thank you so much. What a valuable presentation. What great work that you're doing. I'm curious, you don't have the J on your ED&I because everything else has justice in it. And I'm a Star Wars nerd. And so Jedi just sounds a little bit better than ED&I. So just curious, not saying it should be done, but possibly maybe a good idea to call it Jedi. Quick question on your disaggregation of data on your dashboard. You don't really have to answer it now, but consideration of other targeted communities within that dashboard. Race and ethnicity is vital, very important, but folks with different abilities, folks that are non-binary, any other ways to break that down to ensure that community voice is being seen and heard and identified may be helpful, and especially when it comes to different abilities. I think that's something that host has demonstrated a keen sense and view in whenever work is being done, they're communicating for that community. So maybe that's one that can be added. Those were the only comments I had, and I see Jenny has her hand up. If Jenny has any final comments, and then we'll move on to our next presentation.
Thanks for letting me comment one more time. I just wanted to note that we've been hearing from community as the expanding housing affordability policy has been moving through the process. And I think there's been a lot of community outreach, but that as we think about racial equity and community equity, that as we're creating programs and strategies, the more that we can have community help build those programs and build the strategies and have them at the table at the beginning, I think they think that would be really appreciated. And I know as a practitioner over the years that hasn't necessarily been my own practice, and I'm not sure hosts may be doing that. But as we think about some of the things that are going to be rolling out with the strategic plan and ways that we're going to try to bridge these gaps, really bringing the community to the table to help us figure out how to do that will be important. And I'm hoping that host has that as one of your considerations.
Thanks so much, Jenny. And Sabrina will get the last word, and then we're moving on to the next presentation. Thank you.
Wanted to quickly acknowledge that point and thank you for it, because one of the things that my team is constantly talking about is the importance of bringing us into these policies as we're developing them on the front end, so that we can start thinking about how we actually truly engage our community as we're creating these things. I'm fond of saying that it isn't real engagement if you've already made all the decisions and you're just going out to tell people about it. That's just informing, it's not engaging. And so we're really working with our teams to make sure that that is strategically built into the plans about how do we get input on the front end while we're still thinking them through. Tried to demonstrate a lot of that with the work that we just did on the prioritization plan. So hope to see more of that as we go forward, but thanks for pointing it out. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you, Jenny. Excellent point. A difference with informing and co-creating and really listening to community. Very different. And Sabrina, I appreciate you highlighting that. Looking forward to the presentation from Angie Nelson and Melissa Thate on housing opportunity pillar and having a deep dive discussion with the HSSA board. So I'll turn it over to either one of you leaders.
Great, thanks so much, Daryl, and thanks for having us today. I'm Angie Nelson. I'm our Deputy Director of Housing Stability and Homelessness Resolution on the host team. And I'm just gonna tee up the presentation today and introduce you all to this incredible small but mighty team that we have leading our work in helping to keep folks in the homes that they have. So we call this pillar of our work Housing Stability, and it is linked together with our homelessness resolution work in the one division. The director for housing stability is Melissa Toddy. We are fortunate to also have Carissa Johnson as our housing policy officer. So really looking at those policy levers that we can pull on to help prevent displacement and keep folks in their homes, as well as achieve more equitable housing policies. We have Ian Cohn, who serves as our program manager, and Becca Channel, who serves as a program administrator for our Emergency Rental Assistance Fund. So that's a large federal grant that's helping specific to impacts of COVID. And we're hiring now for a 5th position, which is a program manager over the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Just recently vacated by Ian Cohn as he promoted into a permanent position on the team. So I just wanted to To briefly introduce who the team is so that as we talk about these efforts, you all understand that there are people who are working really hard every day to make these great programs and initiatives happen. And with that, I'll pass it over to Melissa Toddy to share more.
Thank you so much, Angie, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to join you all today and talk about our pillar of work today. So our impact statement, as you can see here, is that residents have a choice in when and under what circumstances they move or remain in their homes and neighborhoods. We advance this mission through various programs and policies with, of course, a key focus on equity across our work. Next slide, please. The first goal we'll talk about is this goal to help households remain in their home and neighborhood of choice. So really this is around helping to mitigate involuntary displacement. One of our primary goals this year is to benchmark the rate of household mobility in order to set a target for 2026. As you can imagine, navigating and tracking involuntary displacement is quite difficult. Without really a household level survey, metro-wide, it's really hard to gather information about who is moving and where they're moving and why they're moving. But we do have some tools in front of us. And so in order to help increase our understanding of involuntary displacement, our data team is really helping to lead a process with Colorado Future Center using Denver Public School data to track mobility throughout Denver with households with children in the school system. So just one of the tools that we're using to help us understand involuntary displacement a little bit more. I'm sure you heard this in Polly's presentation and information, but when we look at neighborhoods that are at high risk of involuntary displacement, these are often neighborhoods that were historically redlined, right? We talk about the inverted L. And so we use that data and that information to do more targeted outreach and programming to really help support those communities and help mitigate involuntary displacement. And I know we're a little running a bit behind on time. So I know you guys are getting or have gotten information on the prioritization policy. So we are more on the supporting role of helping to advance that policy as well. Can you go back just for one moment? I'll be brief. Just a little bit more to add here on the policy side of this work. We are part of a citywide working group which evaluates potential, which evaluates large city investments, which may lead to potential involuntary displacement. We're able to measure that and tailor strategies and budget requests to help mitigate involuntary displacement. And we also support this goal through several of our programs. So Denver Urban Renewal Authority, we have contracts with them for homeowner repair and rehab programs. We also have a program with them that is the Renter Homeowner Access Modification Program, which provides accessibility modifications for people with disabilities. We have a contract with Sunshine Home Share, which pairs older homeowners who are interested in additional income, help with household chores, companionship, with someone who is seeking housing. So kind of a matchmaking for housing to stabilize folks on both ends of that spectrum. And we also work with community navigation partners who are grassroots, trusted community organizations who are really supporting residents with accessing various housing resources and supports. Next slide. The next goal is around reducing evictions, and a lot of our work is focused in this area, especially following COVID. And so our goal is to reduce the number of evictions filed by 25% by 2026. And we do this in a lot of ways. One is providing free legal advice and representation for residents facing an eviction. Currently, we have 4 providers who are providing those services to residents, and we're also working to expand those contracts this year and next year using American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds. Additionally, we are deploying quite a bit of rent and utility assistance. So previously in 2017, we had launched the Temporary Rent and Utility Assistance Program, also known as TRUA. And more recently, last year, we were provided nearly $22 million for Treasury's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I'm seeing a question in the chat, which are those 4 providers? They are Colorado Affordable Legal Services, Colorado Legal Services, Colorado Poverty Law Project, and the community firm also known as the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Project. So with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, again, that initial tranche of funding that came through nearly $22 million, our teams have been able to deploy more than $14 million to serve more than 2,000 households since launching that program last summer. Majority of that, of course, more than 13 million is in direct assistance to households. So this program under the first tranche of funds can provide up to 15 months of assistance, including arrears, current rent, future rent, as well as deposit first month's rent should folks need to relocate. And just want to shout out Ian and Becca, who have done such a tremendous job leading this program through many changes and challenges, and really continue to be focused on how we best support tenants who need assistance, as well as our nonprofit partners who, of course, we cannot do this work without. So again, we have 5 nonprofits who are helping to support the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and 2 nonprofits who help support the Temporary Rent and Utility Assistance Program. Under ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, just a couple of highlights. Denver's program was included on Treasury's website for promising practices. And we were also recently highlighted in a National Low-Income Housing Coalition report for our use of fact-specific proxy, which is a jumbled way of saying reducing documentation barriers in order to demonstrate income eligibility. So really lots of focus on how do we reduce those burdens for folks to be able to access this program. Other programs related to this work are fair housing education and enforcement and tenant landlord counseling, which we have contracts for as well. On the policy side of this, a couple of big ordinances were passed last year. Probably you've seen recently in the media, the rental licensing program, and also the increase to eviction legal assistance ordinance. So both of those were passed last year. And as part of both of those ordinances, there is a requirement for landlords starting in January to provide a copy of a tenant rights and resource guide at any time when they are signing a lease, as well as when they are serving an eviction notice. And so just want to say thanks so much to Carissa, who really led on the drafting of that document, which is difficult to do when you're pulling a lot of state laws into a document. And of course, our amazing comms team who helped us to get it to more plain language. So that it was a document that was easy to understand and utilize for community partners. There's also been quite a few state laws that have been passed over the last couple of years that have made important impacts in providing tenant protection. So caps on late fees and requirements around length of time provided to cure non-payment of rent in eviction cases. So we do track those state law policies very closely and how they impact our work. And Carissa, of course, as our housing policy officer, is continuously researching and exploring other policies in peer cities that we may consider in Denver to support this goal. And lastly, I just want to touch on some data and equity components related to this work. We worked on a project with UC Berkeley's People Lab, and in order to evaluate and analyze historical eviction data, which gave us a tool of looking at where in the city do we see the highest rates of eviction. In addition, we tested different messaging, specifically destigmatizing language, to see if that had an impact on the uptake of our rent and utility assistance program. And we did see that it had significant impact. So we have since been utilizing the information from that project in order to inform our targeted outreach strategies for our programs, where what language to use to really make sure that we are encouraging folks to reach out for resources should they need. A very specific example of that is working with our Office on Immigrant and Refugee Affairs to clearly state on program materials and our website that immigration status is not a requirement for these programs. So explicitly stating that in order to help reduce some of those questions of am I eligible? Can I apply? Next slide, please. On the note of reducing foreclosures in income restricted homes, we're looking to benchmark the foreclosure rate in income restricted homes this year in order to establish a target for reduction. So working very closely with the data team and the housing opportunity team to build out our data and tracking so that we can focus programs and outreach to further reduce foreclosures. A lot of collaboration is required for this goal. So as I mentioned, the housing opportunity team, who also oversees the housing counseling contracts to provide foreclosure counseling. Also the state of Colorado, Division of Housing is overseeing the Homeowner Assistance Fund and the Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program through that funding. Denver Human Services oversees the Property Tax Rebate Program. And if you're a homeowner, you probably received a resource flyer with your property tax bill, which had information about these resources and others. So that work really is collaborative across various agencies to make sure that we're helping to get the word out about resources that are available to folks. Next slide, please. And this last, I think, go back one. Thank you so much. This is more just summary slides so we can have plenty of time for discussion. But in 2022, we are focusing primarily on the two goals of helping households remain in their home and neighborhood of choice and preventing evictions. Throughout its programs, we expect to serve more than 6,000 households this year. I think it's important to know when we talk about households served, that's just a number, but we know that there's a lot of importance in discussing how we evaluate who we are serving and identify gaps and areas for improvement. So to Daryl's point earlier, we do track information on who is served by those who may have someone living in the home with a disability, female head of household, of course, race, ethnicity, income. So how are we utilizing that information to make sure that we are reaching folks who we need to be in terms of that equity lens? We use the equity dashboard to do that as well as other tools. So for example, our emergency rental assistance program, we've evaluated households served in the program generally through an equity checklist and compared who's being served, their preferred language, and comparing that with the areas with high rates of eviction and other criteria. So we can think about how we do better targeted outreach in languages and in communities where we may be seeing a disconnect between the general city population and those specific demographics who we're currently serving. And some of the other key priorities, which we talked a bit about in the goals earlier, using the investment impact analysis to leverage recovery funding to invest in tailored strategies, eviction prevention through rent and utility assistance, eviction legal defense, supporting with the advancement of the prioritization policy, utilizing Denver Public School data to analyze household mobility. And I think very importantly, we're also working to explore and identify long-term funding sources to support this work going forward, knowing that the emergency and pandemic recovery dollars are likely not to be forever dollars, and want to make sure that we are continuing to support these efforts ongoing, because we know that the need will continue to be there as well. And so with that, I apologize for speaking so quickly, but wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time for Q&A. So with that, we'll open it up to you all.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I first wanted to say I've destroyed your name from the get-go. So Toddy, I will remember it forever now. So thank you so much for providing this great information. Let me look around the room for any of our leaders on the HSSA that have questions for Melissa. And the amazing team that she has on this call. So questions around the housing stability pillar, lots of great information that Melissa provided, added to the information that Polly provided as well, and kind of built on Sam and Israel's presentation this morning on equity. So we'd love to hear your voices.
Daryl, would it help if we just take down the presentation for the discussion?
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Katie, would you mind? Thank you.
And this is what I call my teacher's pause. I'm married to an educator. And so when we do these meetings, I look around the room really slowly, encouraging folks to jump in. Seeing and hearing none at this point, and I know other board members will jump in. Melissa and team, thank you. I do have a few questions, and the first one is along the line of kind of questions that I ask consistently around data and data continuity. I love the focus on data and the focus on tracking movement, especially when it comes to foreclosures, when it comes to housing stability, when it comes to reducing those. My question is, as you tie that back to the HMIS system, so for example, someone coming through a service provider, HMIS has them documented from that service provider as to having some level of temporary transitional housing. That same person moves into actual permanent housing, and then they are now facing foreclosure or facing something that can really adversely impact them. Is there data continuity between the HMIS input of individual experience to folks who may have gone through the system through a service provider, received housing, and now are really focusing on this pillar of housing stability? Can you talk through the data integrity of that piece so the full narrative, full story of individual folks is captured?
Sure. So I'll maybe start with just describing how within our pillar of work, how data is captured. So we have a couple of ways in which we do that. One is through monthly reports through our Salesforce database, some programs in which include household level detail through what we call supplemental form. And so primarily our programs use that for reporting to us, and that's the data that we then use through the equity dashboard and other tools. Our emergency rental assistance program, the data is held in what's the neighborly system, which is the system that we share with the state to track data and report to Treasury. So our programs specifically don't report within HMIS, but I think to your point, we are interested in talking through and thinking through how do we pair these kind of different data sources to really evaluate what is that full spectrum and different programming and different touches from folks who ideally we're on the front end and keeping them out of homelessness, but should they enter homelessness, what are the touches there? I know HMIS and other venues track why folks have fallen into homelessness. So I think that there's a lot of value there in us understanding how many folks are newly homeless, how many are saying it's because of eviction, and other information that we can pull from that HMIS data compared to the other ways that we evaluate our programmatic data. And I don't know if Jennifer Weiss is on, if she would add anything. I didn't see her. So if anyone else has anything else to add from the data side, please let me know.
That's very helpful, Melissa. And I was looking for Jennifer as well, because I usually tag her on these, but thank you for sharing that. I just think that spectrum, and as Jennifer is building out her dashboard, that would be fantastic for folks to have visibility, not just internally, but externally, to see kind of really the full spectrum and to demonstrate that these strategic targets within these four pillars, that they're speaking with each other and not just simply operating as a silo. So I'll pause again and see if there's any other board members that have questions. I see, let me see. there's a question from Melanie on the chat. Melanie just agreeing. Thank you so much, Melanie. And I know, Melissa, you can see that comment from Melanie. I think Melanie lost her voice also, so I'll put that into the universe so folks know that if Melanie didn't, she would be speaking up on data. And so I just thought I would bring her voice into the room.
Yeah. Thanks, Daryl. I'm happy to come off and try to speak. Y'all can hear what I'm working with. But yeah, I feel very excited about this lane of work, and I think we're just all kind of moving in the right direction to have very reliable, comprehensive data that we can match up with these other data sources and really use to drive decision making with some level of reliability. So just excited about all of this.
All right, another silent pause for the board members. If you let me, I've got like 15 questions. I don't actually want to ask all 15, I got 3. So just want to see any other board members with any points, clarifications, questions. Then I have just 2 others for you, Melissa and team. Seeing none, within the pillar for housing stability, curious as to where your team sees the opportunities for ADUs. I know that there's the cost is sometimes prohibitive for folks who want to keep families within homes, who want generations within the same property. That may not be the primary use of ADUs, but it is a use of it. Community members have asked that question. I'm just curious from your thinking, Melissa, Carissa, anyone from the team, is there any thought to helping with affordability once we have the clear targets from the prioritization process, redlining communities, individuals who are more likely to be displaced involuntarily? Are ADUs within that line of supporting and reducing the cost of creating ADUs?
Thank you for that question, Daryl. So there is a group that's being pulled together through being led by Community Planning and Development, CPD, who is going to be looking at just that. What are the policies around accessory dwelling units? I know we have had, there's some language in the action plan around evaluating the impacts of the program that we've had with West Denver Renaissance Collaborative and their ADU initiative, which is really targeted at that stabilization piece and mitigating involuntary displacement. And how do we look at that across the city in ways that can be supportive? So I know it's something that we'll be digging into. I love that this group is data focused. So want to see more research and data analysis to ensure that the impact does help with affordability and ways to mitigate involuntary displacement versus it being used in other ways that may not help achieve those missions. So more to come on that, certainly, and we'll keep you all posted, but excited for us to dig in a little bit more on that topic.
Thanks, Melissa, for that. And my final question, and I'll go around the room one last time. I know the HOA piece, it's a little new because it's exploding in the press right now. So I understand reactively there are some steps that are being taken. There are some proactive steps within the state legislature that I think are fantastic. I'm curious as your thoughts, Carissa's and others, on from what I'm hearing from the state legislature and the work that's being done there. Some of the steps are important or valuable, but I'm not hearing very specific steps when it comes to the notification for fees, transparency on fees for folks to know that they actually are accruing cost that can lead to evictions. Having kind of a process where there's an ombudsman or something that a mediator outside of having to go to the costly litigation process that's now there. Can you shine any light on either of the 2? I think there are 2 bills that are being discussed. Are any of those targets within those bills, or is there anything that host is communicating with leadership at the state legislature for things that are people impacted, like the ability to not have to go to court, like the ability to have very clear, transparent notification of any fees at any time, and having a process to deal with mediation before foreclosure?
Sure, and I'll let Britta jump in as well, because I know she's been involved in conversations. But yes, I think you're right. There's a bill going through the state legislature right now, which is transparency around HOA. And so oftentimes I would say, especially on the eviction side of things, and now with this HOA fee conversation coming to light, a lot of it is around state laws, state policies that can help really implement and impact ways to mitigate that, create transparency, create tenant and homeowner rights and protections. And so a lot of times our hands are a bit tied at the local level. But what we can do and are committed to doing is, of course, letting folks know about the resources that are available, where we can advance policy. We're doing it. We're researching it. We're moving it. We want to do what we can at the local level, but specific to that topic right now, very much at the state level to take some action on that front. So I think we certainly have work to do and things that we're exploring within HOST to support folks, but that's where we're looking and hoping that the state is taking notice and taking action.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I was wondering, Britta or Jack, did you want to add anything else? I just think it's important because it's one of our action items within the pillars. And I know this has popped up, but it has been an ongoing issue. So very curious of your thoughts, Britta. And Jack, I know this is your world, so I know it's your past world, but curious.
Yes, and we have an advisor with the state online, of course, as well. But there's certain things that are within our control and certain things that are not. So as you point out, there are many things that lie within state law. And we do have active conversations as the city of Denver with our legislators and the delegation here from Denver. In particular, we recently met with the Joint Budget Committee and we were successful, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, in having their support in a letter to FEMA. As far as specific bills, there are many. And so I'm not going to go into every single one, but rest assured, yes, we have taken positions and acknowledged our support or disapproval of different things that could impact Denver and our residents in positive and negative ways. We also prioritize based on likelihood of those things advancing. And so there's a complicated algorithm of things in play, but yes, we stay very in touch and communicative. In fact, this isn't even the first time Kristen and I at the state have talked today. So we're always trying to be aware and leverage our city influence and our city resources with our state and our federal partners.
Thank you so much, Britta, and thank you for your work on this. I kind of followed it virtually, the steps that are being taken by hosts. I just wanted to bring it into the room. And I see Sabrina's hands are up, and with Sabrina will be the final comment for the day. So Sabrina, I'll pass it to you.
I was just going to add to that we do have a process that we use citywide. The mayor's office really works with all of our departments to make sure that they are very actively monitoring proposed legislation, and then they send it to us to ask us for input, like Britta talked about, and then they take that back and aggregate it all as a city to make sure that we're all seeing that from the various different lenses of the different departments and agencies throughout the city. So we're very actively involved in that process, and Jack is our lead on that for the department. So.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you so much, Melissa and team. Great information. And I think it really adds to the understanding not just of HASA, but of the community to demonstrate how you're actually measuring that. And so it's not simply that we at HASA has a focus on data, it's clear HOST does as well. And I think it's gratifying to know that you're looking through that equity lens, having a dashboard for transparency, and really ensuring that folks know that this good work is happening and that you're measuring it so you can scale it throughout the city. So thank you all for your great work. Thank you so much, Israel and Sam, for a great presentation. And for everyone on the call who participated, shared comments in chat. This is great work. I know that we're doing this because we love what we do. And I think we're making a difference within community. So thank you all for joining and looking forward to seeing you on our next call next month. And
if I
Sabrina?
can grab everybody really quick, Katie, do we have something we need to tell HSSA members about?
Yes, we do. If any of you submitted an order for our host merch, like Sabrina has on here, those items have arrived. They're in our office. And so I guess I wanted to put the question out if the folks who ordered things would like to come and pick up their items, or if you would like us to ship them to you. If you ordered something, if you could just send me a message and I'll work with you to make sure you get your stuff.
Thanks, Katie.
We love merch. Thanks so much, everyone. Have an amazing weekend and great seeing you all, and see you next month. Take care.
Thank you, Daryl.
Still here.